Vivek will be happy to discuss with you after it. Thank you once again for coming.
To say that with 100% certainty we need a consumption side, which hasn't happened since 10, 11, 12. In the absence of that, we can still rather. I mean, there is more than. There are a lot of us who are doing well. My pleasure you came. It was great to see you.
I had registered for a derivative session. CFA Hyderabad was doing it. I had not planned for this, but I'm here this evening. Very insightful. I think very number driven. Numbers don't lie, but it is very different stories.
So I showed you both the sides.
You
I didn't
did a
like
very
cut it
great
out.
job. No, I really enjoyed
I didn't
it.
cut out.
I'll talk to our team and I'd like to invite you for our.
Just give me a minute.
Good, but what I wanted to ask you have asked him like
एक बार फिर से
half of the question you asked.
feeling, and it's a great public move, great PR, and a good move. I mean, great PR and good move is a rare combination these days. Okay. Now, why are they so? Why is the government not doing? Why did they not do anything? So again, if you look at these numbers, they tell you the real story. Now, what I have plotted here are essentially what is known as direct taxes. What are direct taxes? Direct taxes are essentially of two kinds. One is the corporation tax, the income tax that corporates pay the government on their income, and then the other is the personal income tax that people like you and me pay the government. So if you see the chart, the contribution of individual taxes, which is the lower curve, the taxes you and I pay, income tax, not we pay more than income tax, has gone up, whereas the contribution of corporations paying income tax to the government has come down. Okay. Now, 2023-24, interestingly, was the first year since 91-92, except we have to leave out the COVID pandemic year of 2021, when individual income taxes were higher than corporate income tax. So essentially, and this is not lower profits. Corporate profits have gone up dramatically due to the increasing formalization of the Indian economy, but the taxes haven't gone up at the same rate, and that's primarily because the corporate income tax rate was cut in 2019, and so essentially, the government is not making enough money from corporation tax, and that is essentially a lot of it is being covered through individual income taxes. Now, individual income taxes have gone up because the surcharges that need to be paid on incomes of higher than 50 lakhs are very, very high now. So, the other thing that has happened is that the disinvestment of public sector enterprises has fallen dramatically. Okay, so it was at around 0.5% of the GDP in 18-19, and this year it's expected to be at 0.1%. Now, the disinvestment of public sector enterprises is a very passionate issue. It gets people going. And I am a child of a public sector employee, and the fact that I ended up where I have, a large part of it is because my father and both my grandfathers were public sector employees. I mean, we would have never gotten where I would have never gotten where I have without them. In fact, the greatest public sector success story is Mahendra Singh Dhoni. I mean, he obviously, we come from the same city, as I never forget to remind anyone who's willing to listen. So his father was an employee of Mecon, Metallurgical and Engineering Corporation. So public sector obviously plays a key role in a country like India. So when people say that you should sell off everything, I mean, I think that is not going to happen, and that's terrible PR, and it's not good economics also. But we really don't need 27 public sector banks. Okay, which is now down to 12, because it's not that they have been sold off, they have been merged. Actually, the number of public sector banks is 13, even though technically IDBI Bank is not a public sector bank, because the Life Insurance Corporation of India is a major owner of it. But anything which is majorly owned by LIC is nothing. It can't be anything but a public sector bank. So we do not need 13 public sector banks. Okay, I mean, I understand that public sector banks are very, very important because they help the government achieve its social objectives in many ways. But at the cost of what? For many, many years, Kotak Mahindra Bank was worth more than the State Bank of India. And this is something I was never able to get my head around, because Kotak Mahindra Bank is a puny bank in front of State Bank of India. Now that's not the case. The State Bank of India is worth more because of the prices have gone up in the last few years. Again, I mean, for many, many years, HDFC Bank on its own was worth all the public sector banks except the State Bank of India. All the public sector banks on its own were worth less than HDFC Bank. So why is this the case? This is not right, because ultimately, these are banks which are utilizing resources and they're not utilizing them properly. So which is why I strongly feel that a lot of public sector banks at least, because they are I think by far the easiest to privatize, should be privatized. And the money earned from it can then be used to incentivize the other public sector banks and the private banks to help achieve the social objectives of the government. A great example is UTI Bank, which is now Axis Bank. The owners of UTI Bank were all public sector institutions. It was not a private, owned institution, but it was run as a private bank. And over the years, the government made a lot of good money by selling its shares in that bank. So I think this is a good help, the country at large. So I think this is the last slide. Now, just skip it. Okay, now, the problem is that the finances of the government are so delicately and intricately balanced right now that any cut, let's say they cut income tax, then where do they fill the gap? Let's say they cut your goods and services tax, where do they fill the gap? Let's say they cut what was the third one? Can you just... No, GST. Let's say they cut, GST bol diya. Just go back. No? Let's say they cut petrol and diesel prices. Again, the budget goes out of balance, because what happens is your fiscal deficit then goes up. Now, what is the fiscal deficit? Fiscal deficit is essentially the difference between what a government earns and what it spends. And currently, because of the impact of the pandemic, the fiscal deficit of India is on the higher side, and the government is trying to reduce it to around 4.5% of the GDP by 2025-26. So which is why it is really not in a position to encourage consumption, and which is basically what the finance secretary said. So this is how the entire thing fits together. And that's the slide. So this is the final disclaimer, and this is a couplet by favorite poet of mine called Nida Fazli. And Fazli Saab essentially says that कभी कभी यूं भी हमने अपने जी को बहलाया है, जिन बातों को खुद ना समझे औरों को समझाया है. If I were to translate it, does anyone want me to translate this or? Okay. So thank you sirs for having me today. I hope I did not data and the numbers. So thank you.
What will there be in the interim budget? And that was 2019, the interim budget was measures announced. There was nothing here, but still the big puzzle for all of us is, while we are told repeatedly that the economy is doing so well, but when we look around us, it isn't quite doing so well. So how do we put all the pieces of the puzzle together? And I think you have done an excellent job, and thank you for coming all the way from Mumbai, and sorry we had to subject you to all those hoardings while you were traveling from the airport.
It gave me a great story to start with. Imagine
Yeah.
using a story from Yuva Ratna Balakrishna in talking about the Indian economy. I mean, where else would you get that? So.
Yeah, anyway, thank you again. This is, I think, well, you've been here before, you've spoken at Manthan, you've spoken at HLF. I hope you will keep coming back to tell us perhaps more better stories if things improve. With that, we will close this. I would just like to offer a memento to Vivek for his visit. I'm sorry we're not able to take questions because there's another function after this in the Secunderabad Club. But for now, thank you, Vivek. And
Sir, you cut me there. And the point I was trying to make, and I mean, I get your point that derivatives, you don't require demat accounts. But the point I wanted to make, and I sort of, that I forgot, was the fact that only around 3 crore demat accounts in India have investment 10,000 rupees. So basically, yes, the number of demat accounts have gone up, but I really don't know what people are using it for. I mean, they might be buying a few shares here and there, but what is actually happening in the stock market right now is not happening in the so